You found us.
I know. What are we doing?
Good, good.
Not as nice day as it was yesterday.
No, yesterday was much better.
Yeah. How we doing? Good. Excellent. What's that? The whole team.
All right. It's upside down. Call to order the May 28th meeting of the North Andover Planning Board. We have, well, why don't we just take care of communications, Merrimack River Task Force kickoff meeting. Do you want to just tell us just about that? Just a little, they're having a kickoff meeting.
So I don't know who's on the commission yet. They're just forming it. Merrimack Valley Planning and Senator DeZaglio are the only two names representing that have been represented to me. So I've offered, Peter has expressed some interest. They're meeting
Great.
on Friday. Peter's going to try to attend. I think
Okay.
he could add a lot of value, so hopefully that works out. So,
It's a little bit of a tough schedule,
Yep.
for me, but I'll see what I can do.
Okay.
And I am interested if
Yep.
I can.
if you can't make it, and if you communicate to me that what time would work for you, then I'll
Sure.
certainly pass it on.
Okay, thanks.
Well, let me know. I mean, I it's near my office. If
Okay.
I have to, I can potentially go in.
Great, thanks.
Okay, great. So that'll be on file. Sounds like a good project. New public hearing, special town meeting, zoning bylaw amendment articles. We have 3, which we will discuss together. They're all related. Special town meeting article to amend the zoning bylaw, Chapter 195, Attachment 3, Table 2, summary of dimensional requirements to allow for an increase in the maximum building height described under Table 2 in the I-2 zoning district by planning board special permit, and to allow for an increase in the maximum floor area ratio described under Table 2 in the I-2 zoning district by planning board special permit. Special town meeting article to amend the zoning bylaw, Chapter 195, Article 4, Part 4.14K, in I-2 zoning district to delete solar as a renewable or alternative energy manufacturing use and add text under Article 4, Part 4.14K to clarify that solar, including solar energy systems, is a permitted use under Chapter 195, Article 8, Part 12. And third, special meeting, town meeting article to amend the town zoning bylaw, Chapter 195, Article 8, Part 12, solar energy systems, to allow for changes to setback and other locational requirements described under 195 8.88B for large-scale ground-mounted solar energy systems by planning board special permit, and to make a technical correction to the solar energy systems bylaw to specify that all rooftop mounted solar energy systems are considered an accessory use. Okay, with that being said, what we're talking about is our zoning changes related to the I-2 zoning district, specifically with a project in mind, which would later need special permitting at 1600 Osgood. This is a planning board sponsored articles, though it was brought to the planning board by a particular applicant. So I will let the applicant speak now.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, other members of the board. John Smolak and Vaughn, attorney for the petitioner, Hillwood Enterprises. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce you to several members of the project team, some of whom you will hear from this evening. First is Gary Frederick, Senior Vice President and Market Lead for the Northeast for Hillwood Enterprises. Also with us is Sean O'Brien, Vice President for Development for Hillwood. In addition, we have with us Nate Kirshner of Langen Engineering, our project civil engineer. And at this time, I'd like to have Gary Frederick please come to the table and introduce a couple folks to the board. As you recall from our last meeting, the board had asked for the identification of the tenant or the user for the property, and we had actually just come back from the selectmen's meeting that started at 6:30 and introduced the tenant. And so I'd like to turn this over to Gary for the introduction.
Good evening. Thanks for hearing us this evening. We are continuing to make progress and looking forward to town meeting, special town meeting on June 18th. Last time you saw me, we spoke about the user tenant of the project, and we're very excited to announce tonight that that's Amazon. With us tonight is Brad Griggs and Jeff Cleland from Amazon. We like I said, we're making progress. We appreciate the patience. My team has been subject to a very strict non-disclosure agreement for about the last year on this project, and it's very important that we live up to what we agreed to with that, and we have, and we've reached a point where I can introduce these gentlemen, and they've got another engagement tonight, so they won't be with us too much longer. But we are very excited, and I think everything is proceeding as we had hoped. We've got a long way to go. The June 18th meeting will be a big hurdle to clear for us, and move us that much closer to our goal. I'll yield to Mr. Griggs.
Thank you very much for your time this evening. We're very excited to work with you, Mr. Chairman, and the rest of the planning board here on this opportunity. We're working with the Hillwood team and with John on working through our due diligence on the site. We're still obviously fairly early in that process, but John, the Hillwood team's done quite a lot, and we're excited to work with you now and hopefully get through the special town meeting there on the 18th. It's an important piece of our due diligence process, and excited to work with you all on that. So thank you again for your time this evening, and look forward to working together going forward.
And they're fresh off of a groundbreaking in Boston earlier today. As you may have heard, there's a groundbreaking for is a 400,000 square foot.
430,000 square feet in the seaport for one of our new tech hubs.
So what is it that drew you to this particular parcel to North Andover for the e-commerce fulfillment center?
Sure. So it'll be, if we can, again, get through the due diligence process, it'll be one of our AR sortable sites. It's one of the newer designs that we're going to be bringing out for the expansion of our North American distribution network. This site provides a lot of advantages as far as the potential to facilitate our customer base throughout the East Coast. It's being considered as part of an overall evaluation of a number of sites, throughout the country as we work through our due diligence to make sure we're, achieving the goals of meeting our customer needs throughout throughout North America.
Okay. So you guys, John, if these folks need to leave, that's fine. There may be questions. I'm assuming that you or representatives from Hillwood will be able to answer. If there are questions that you're not able to answer, they would ultimately fall to them. I trust that you'll relay those and get us back answers in the next couple of meetings.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. No, I mean, does anyone have any particular question? I mean, it's probably they did a very good job keeping the secret, but there were a limited number of choices I think that we could surmise. So I think we're definitely glad that you could come forward and tell us that, because it gives us a lot more comfort. The zoning part is not difficult in terms of setting it up, whether it's accepted or not. That's all the story. But setting it up is not difficult. But I think having the planning board sponsor it and now knowing that it's a well-recognized, reputable company, that gives us a lot more comfort going forward and putting our names on it. So we appreciate that. And I'd also just say I know we got mail from Hillwood about meetings coming up, town meetings, and we can talk about those later on. Okay. So I just want to say I appreciate that came out in the mail and that it was informational more than advocacy. I think right now it's important that all the information get out, and if you want to advocate later on, go for it. But I think separating those two was a nice step, so appreciated that.
And I'd just like to thank everyone we asked at the last meeting about giving us as much transparency as you could and identifying who this was. And I think the openness of the communication helps everyone. So really appreciate you either responding to that or planning to do this anyway in spite of our asking. And I also agree with the chairman that I thought the letter was striking in that it was informational rather than advocacy, and I think that really helps everyone have transparency and understand what's happening. I thought that was really well done.
Well, we think too that the more information that's out there, and the more transparent it is, it makes for a better project
Yes.
with greater input. So.
Yep. Great.
Okay. So thank you, gentlemen. John, do you guys have more information that you want to present tonight? Or if not, then I'll just jump to if any member of the public want to ask questions or talk, if there's more information you want to present.
Well, I mean, what we were planning to do is, and we don't have to have the folks at Amazon here.
Yeah.
They're certainly welcome to stay, but I plan to run through a presentation that we ran through a few weeks ago. It's substantially identical. If you'd like us to cut short on that, we could certainly do that too, simply because it's a lot of repeat of what you've heard in the past, and we could answer
I
any.
think for the record,
That was just
Yeah.
a preliminary discussion. You should at least run through that piece.
I think we should, and if there are additional
Sure.
questions, it's good to have it on the record for the hearing so that, I think a lot of people in town are up to speed on it, but it's okay if we hear it twice or 3 or 4 or 5 times, that's okay. As long as everyone gets to hear it at least once, that's the
Sure.
goal, so.
Okay.
So want to do that?
Thank you all very much. Look forward to working
Thanks.
together. Thank you.
Thank you.
So why don't we do the presentation, and then then we'll open it up to public questions or comments.
Okay, great. Just to start, again, this presentation is substantially identical to what the board has seen several weeks ago. As we've discussed, the amendments really break down into 2 separate categories. One of which is dimensional, related to the proposed new building on the proposed Lot B that we'll discuss further for the new building. And the second set of amendments relate to solar use, solar dimensional requirements related to the migration of the solar from one lot to over several lots. And so if we could start, Monica, just I think if you can move a few slides forward, if you don't mind, Gary, unless you want to talk about yourself more. So.
Any question? Well, so what we've heard in the past, and just so that everyone knows, is that Hillwood is going to be the company that purchases the property, is going to do the remediation work, which there's a significant amount to do, knocking over buildings, environmental cleanup, things of that nature. Get it all ready for the end user, who we have now heard is Amazon, to use it as a fulfillment center.
Maybe one clarification
Please.
is that as relates to environmental, there aren't any environmental conditions as it's, and I'm not a technical guy here, but there aren't any environmental conditions that exist today. There will be hazardous materials removed as the structures are demolished, and that's very typical for structures that are older than a certain date when they used asbestos inside the building. So I don't want to get the wrong impression that there's a hazardous situation sitting there at 1600 Osgood today, because that's not true. This is just going to be cleanup associated with the demolition.
Great.
That's a good point. And just in terms of, this is an area that you've seen before. Again, the property is located in, if I can get this to work, this,
Second location.
it doesn't allow me to, I guess it doesn't work on this board.
How about over there?
Nope. Well, anyway, the property itself, as everyone is aware of it, is approximately 167 acres in size. To the south of the site, or the right-hand side of that slide, you see the various landmarks, including the Greater Lawrence Sanitary District to the bottom right-hand of the screen, or the south of the site. You also see the Wheelabrator Technologies facility a little bit north of that, the Lawrence Airport, and then Holt Road. And then as you hit Holt Road and hit the property, and you're going from south to north, you see all the properties on the easterly side of Osgood Street, including the police department, Orchard Hill Road. Landmarks is Jimmy's Pizza, and there are landscaping companies along that area, a self-storage facility. And then ultimately, as you head from south to north, you hit Bradford Street to Haverhill, to the Ward Hill Connector, and to 495. So the area, as we know, is zoned industrial. It's primarily an industrial area. There are a couple of residential units associated with some of the companies that are there, but by and large, in the immediate vicinity, it's non-residential. Just moving to the next slide is the existing conditions of the property. Again, just to blow up the site, again, is it's approximately 167.8 acres in size, on which is located approximately 1.9 million square feet of existing office, warehouse, and other commercial space contained within about 30 separate buildings on the property. The property includes approximately 4,700 existing parking spaces. And as you know, there are 4 main access points to the property. And again, the north and south entrances that are the sort of the bookends for the property, as well as the 2 inner entrances that are located in front of buildings 20 and 21, which is the main building that you see from Osgood Street. In terms of the next site plan, if we could, the next site plan is the same site plan that you saw previously, except what's overlaid on this is the existing solar. So there's a 6 megawatt facility that's located on the property, as the board is aware. Also, at the top of this slide, you see various vantage points, which we have shown to the board previously. Also, just to point out, in the center of the building, or to the right of the building, on the south side of the building, there's a notation of a yellow dot of an existing stack. And I'll get back to that later. That stack is about 140 to 150 feet in height. And also, again, we'll talk about that shortly. And as we go through the next slides, if you could, Monica. These are the various vantage points heading from south to north. Again, starting from Orchard Hill Road, it's a view towards what you see here is mostly buildings 20 and 21 in the front of the property. If we can go to the next slide, Monica. This is the south entrance to the facility. Again, looking directly north through the existing landscaping that was included as part of a site plan review and approval back maybe about 10 years ago. Next slide, if we could. Again, the south entrance, looking again north. The next slide, please. And I'll run through these quickly. This is one of the newer slides. This is the slide I referred to a moment ago, and the depiction of the existing stack on the property. That stack on the right-hand side, there are actually 2 stacks on that view, and this is from the inner south entrance, looking from Osgood Street towards Westerly. Straight ahead is the existing stack on the site, which is about 140 to 150 feet in height. It's about 1,000 feet from Osgood Street, which is about the same location or distance of the proposed highest point of the new building, except that stack is 140, 150 feet, as opposed to what we're proposing. If you look to the left of the site, you'll see the Wheelabrator stack. That's about 1,775 feet southwesterly of that stack location. And the reason why I sort of identify that is simply because of the fact that, as this slide just sort of shows, as the distance of these structures from Osgood Street increases, you see that they blend into the surrounding neighborhood a little bit more. That stack at the Wheelabrator site is about 230 feet based on the air permit information that we have here. So again, from a perspective, as you go further back on the site, these larger objects look smaller, and that's important for purposes of our proposal for the building height. Next slide, if we could. Again, these are slides. This is across on Beechwood Drive. If we can go to the next slide. Again, another angle or view from Beechwood Drive across Osgood Street westerly towards buildings 20 and 21. Moving further north, again, this is the Jimmy's Pizza parking lot, looking at it from a slightly different angle. And then if we can go further, and again, different views as we proceed north. If, Monica, if you could just move a few more slides ahead. And this, again, is the proposed subdivision of the property. We started with the lotting plan, as we've seen this previously. The existing site is to be divided into 3 separate lots, lots A, B, and C. Lots A and C are the yellow and the orangish color or peach colored lots shown on that plan, are to be retained by 1600 Osgood Street as the current owner, and Lot B is to be sold to Hillwood Enterprises. If we can go to the next slide, these are just existing blow-ups of Lot A. Lot A is, again, to be retained by owner. Includes 26.89 acres, includes existing 400,000 square feet of building, the old Bell Labs facility, as well as Western Electric office space that will remain. All the other buildings on the site, except for these 2 buildings in the front, buildings 20 and 21, will be demolished or razed. Access to Lot A will be through the 2 inner access drives off of Osgood Street. If we go to the next slide, Monica, and this is Lot B. Lot B is approximately 110 acres in size. Again, the area of the proposed e-commerce and distribution facility. That building will have approximately 825 square foot building footprint. Again, that building is going to be constructed behind buildings 20 and 21, behind Lot A on Lot B. The building that's proposed on Lot B will be approximately the closest part of that building, which is the front entryway, is about 850 feet from Osgood Street. The tallest portion of this building will be approximately 1,000 feet off of Osgood Street, again behind buildings 20 and 21 as you look from Osgood Street westerly towards the site. If we can go to Lot C. Lot C is the area of the proposed relocation of the solar. The solar array will continue to be located on buildings 20 and 21, but the existing solar that's on building 70 to the rear of the existing building, along with all the ground-mounted solar, is going to be migrated over to Lot C, and in that general configuration as you see. If we can go to the next slide. The next slide is just a landscape configuration of the property. And as you see on both the right side, or the southern portion of the property, as well as the far northern portion of the property, it's to remain as existing vegetation and its existing conditions, and that the vast majority of the redevelopment will occur where there's existing pavement and impervious areas. And actually, the redevelopment will result in probably a reduction of about 1,000 parking spaces, and will be a slight reduction in impervious surfaces as well. The next slide is, I guess it's related to the proposed zoning amendments. Again, this is a cross-section of the existing building as related to the proposed new building to be located to the rear of the site. In terms of the existing I-2 zoning district, much of what we're proposing can be accomplished in terms from a zoning perspective within the existing I-2 zoning district. However, as discussed with the board in the past, the I-2 zoning district really hasn't changed much in terms of its allowed uses and dimensional requirements since the early 70s, when that zone was actually created as a result of the John Brown Master Plan back in 1972. So at that time, manufacturing and distribution were more vertical in nature in terms of its location, the high bay warehouses, and more horizontal in nature in terms of high bay warehouses, and essentially a manufacturing facility is what you would get from the existing zoning that's in place today, and that's what we got with the Western Electric facility that turned into a Lucid facility. But with the technology and e-commerce industry so rapidly changing, these modern facilities really dictate a more vertical configuration, and that's the reason why we're requesting the changes in terms of the building height to accommodate the reconfiguration with advanced robotics and the like.
So can I ask a question on that?
Sure.
Is it one big, like, inside, is it multiple floors? Do you need to, like, 10 levels to go up 100 feet? Or is it 100-foot ceilings, like you need
No, it's,
the really long, the really tall
multiple
robots?
levels.
Okay, so it's the multiple levels. So multiple levels of different things going on within the building.
Right, primarily robotic material handling. There's more fancier names for it, but that's essentially what it is.
But still, you know, normal floor sizes for the most part.
Right, they're 12 to 15 feet.
Yeah, I think the higher ones are maybe, normal, like a floor for a regular building, like an office building.
Okay. All right. But I was just trying to picture the difference between like an office building with, 10, 12, 15-foot floors and robotics in
Yeah, I
between
mean,
versus 100-foot robotics.
The first floor
That's
will
a
be
big-
higher because there'll be
Yeah.
kind of a platform coming out underneath that. And then the four elevated floors, I think they've got just a clear height of like, this room, right, of like maybe like 9 feet or so. And so that's mostly where in the center of all those four elevated floors, there will be the robotics working in probably 85% of that square footage of each of those floors.
Okay.
And then around the edges is where, people will be there picking.
Office space.
Well, people will be there picking and putting them on the conveyors to go down, so.
Is there office space within the main building, or is that somewhere separate?
The office is connected to the front. It's the little kind of stub
L-shape.
off to the front. That's the main office. And then there's other, remote bathrooms and things throughout the warehouse, but all the main functions in the break room and all that is in the main office.
So it's, I'm not surprised it's highly robotic. I think that makes sense, but where did the 1,500 jobs come from if it's highly robotic?
Well, there's only certain tasks that robots can do, and then people have to take over.
Yeah.
There's.
Did I get that number right? That's what I heard.
Yeah, we're absolutely authorized by Amazon to say 1,500
Great,
full-time jobs.
great.
These are jobs with real benefits. And I heard these guys say this morning it's the same benefits they get. So that's a huge factor in terms of the economic lift
Yeah.
that
And I
comes
don't
with
mean to
this.
drill down in that. It's just
That's okay.
the description about robotics was very helpful and not surprising, but it did kind of just trigger that question, but you've answered to my satisfaction. Thank you.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think that in terms of the upper floors, 85% of those floors are the robotics portion of the facility, and then the 15% are habitable by employees in those areas, but much greater percentage habitable in terms of workers on the first floor, at least the first floor. So that's where the majority of workers would be, as I understand it. So there.
For me, it kind of challenges my notion of how things would work, but it kind of ultimately makes sense. I just don't know how stuff gets from floor to floor. That's probably the interesting part. So,
We'll have a site visit at some point.
I guess we'll have to, yeah.
So in terms of the two-dimensional requirements that we're looking to modify, they include, for the proposed building is maximum building height to a level up to 105 feet. And as we've discussed in the past, there are existing zoning provisions within this particular district where a manufacturing building is allowed to go to a height of 85 feet. And then there's a pharmaceutical manufacturing facility silo that's allowed to go to about 115 feet. And I think we're somewhere in between that. And I think that the average height really will be around 95 feet with some additional increases in building height to bring us to that 105-foot location. In terms of FAR, we've discussed FAR before. The current zoning bylaw allows for 0.5 to 1 FAR, but in terms of other zoning districts within town, the CDD districts have a 0.75 to 1, and the R5 district has a 0.75 to 1 FAR. The Subdistrict A has a 1 to 1 FAR ratio, and you can go up to 2 to 1 by special permit. So I think that the FAR that we're talking about is probably in line with some of the other districts within the zoning bylaw. And so again, if we can go to the next slide is the cross-section. We've discussed this a bit before. This cross-section on the far right shows an illustration of a person who would be standing, a person of average height standing on Osgood Street looking westerly towards first buildings 20 and 21, and then also towards the proposed building. And so as you could see from this illustration, basically Osgood Street starts out at elevation 60, and then it crosses for about 400 feet distance over a parking lot, and it hits the existing buildings 20 and 21, both of which have an average height of around 43 feet. From there, immediately behind buildings 20 and 21, the elevation dips to in the parking behind those buildings to an elevation of 47 feet, or about a 15-foot drop. And then you'd go another 600 feet to the tallest part of the building on Lot B, which has a first floor elevation of 47. And so by the time you get to the proposed building, or the tallest part of the proposed building, you're about 1,000 feet away from Osgood Street at an elevation of about 13 feet below what you would see, what you would have at Osgood Street. And so as a result, as you can see from that view, there's a dotted line. It shows that if you're looking straight from Osgood Street directly towards buildings 20 and 21 from that vantage point, you will not see the upper floors of that building, or any of the floors of that building from it.
Again, the height of the front building versus the height of the back, what's the difference?
Well, the height of the front building is an average of around 43 feet. There are some sections of the building, as you go more northerly, that are about 54, 55 feet.
Okay.
And the highest portion of the proposed new building is around 103, 104 feet, somewhere around there.
But the base elevation is 10 or 15 feet below Osgood Street.
Below Osgood Street.
Right, okay, so
Right.
it's down.
So
Okay.
it's down
So
further,
it's-
right,
okay.
right. And so that's the reason why you don't have that vantage point directly from that location. If we can go to the next, Monica, please. And this is a view from the police station parking lot, as if you were looking southwesterly. As you see the tree clearing, you can't really see the building in that vantage point, but if we can go to the next slide. This is right on Orchard Hill Drive. You can start to see some semblance of the massing of the building to the northerly side of the site. If we can go to the next slide. Again, this is from the Jimmy's Pizza parking lot. You again don't see the height of the proposed building to the in this perspective, and then following up further north, as you the next slide, if we could, Monica. Thank you. Is another view of the proposed building on the northerly side of the site. So that gives you a vantage point in terms of massing. Obviously, if town meeting approves these zoning changes, we're still certainly going to have to be before the board to talk about massing and to make a demonstration in terms of the findings under the special permit criteria, that there won't be any.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an
Yeah.
important point to reemphasize. The way we've set it up is that it's a use allowed by special permit, not by right, so. Yeah.
Correct. So in that circumstance, the planning board's going to have to make specific findings that there's no adverse impact to the neighborhood. It's an appropriate location for the use, that there won't be any nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, and that adequate and appropriate facilities are provided for the proper operation of the proposed use.
The height will be by special permit too, correct?
That is correct. Both the FAR proposal and the height would be allowed by special permit by the planning board. So the planning board has significant authority and discretion based on the findings that they would have to make. Then, so in addition to those dimensional changes with respect to the building on Lot B, we talked about a little bit about the zoning changes with respect to solar. There are 3 changes that we're looking at. We're proposing several tweaks to the solar provisions under the zoning bylaw, the first of which is we're seeking to amend the list of permitted uses under the I-2 zoning district to specifically carve out solar energy systems as referenced under the solar bylaw, so it's a separate and distinct permitted use under the I-2 zoning district. The second clarification is simply to define rooftop accessory use using terms that are already defined under the zoning bylaw. And so this would be a footnote to the accessory use provisions within the table under the solar bylaw. And basically it's to clarify that the types of solar uses that are allowed under the bylaw, if they're rooftop, would be accessory, considered accessory uses. And the third proposed change, it really relates to modification of dimensional requirements. Monica, if you could just go to the next slide, please. And again, the current solar bylaw does provide for a 75-foot side and rear yard setback. And what we'd like to do as from a planning tool perspective is to enable the board by special permit to modify those dimensional requirements to bring or to slide the solar array farther back from Osgood Street for a couple of reasons. One, it may improve aesthetics. I mean, there's a difference in elevation from Osgood Street to that area, but also by moving the panels further back onto the site, you're moving the panels onto impervious surfaces and away from the wetland resource areas. So the further we could pull those panels back from Osgood Street from an environmental perspective as well, the less potential for an impact on wetland resource areas.
And so those setbacks are in place for really 2 primary purposes. One, aesthetics, if you're driving or walking in a neighborhood where you see, large solar or other solar arrays. And 2, really our big concern when we were talking solar last year was, large, especially large, but medium-sized and large solar arrays, in people's yards being too close to, their neighbors and imposing. So we don't have that concern here because, where this is located. So this is more just about the aesthetics of the solar in conjunction with this whole project and really weighing how important that is and how we can look at it in terms of the whole project. So it seems pretty simple solution to the issue we have.
Well, again, it's a planning tool. If the planning board feels that they feel comfortable in using that to sort of modify from a planning perspective those setbacks, then the board has the ability to do so. They don't have to, but they could. So in terms of a summary, we've discussed this in the past as well, and certainly this is a proposed redevelopment that's consistent with the town's master plan as recently updated and reissued. Provides for a redevelopment opportunity where there's existing resources available for water and sewer and the like, and also consistent with that master plan, this is an opportunity to make zoning changes to attract the types of uses that we want to attract to North Andover, and particularly in this particular part of the town. We certainly have an experienced developer with a great track record, not only nationally but also internationally, who has a reputation to get the job done. We now know the user, which is Amazon, which is certainly a fantastic brand for this town in many ways. We've discussed the projection of 1,500 employees for this site, which is also a significant economic boost, not only for this town but also for the region. This is a far cry from the number of employees that were here when Western Electric was operating in its heyday, when there were 13,000 employees. But on the other hand, this is a wonderful opportunity that comes around once in a generation for this town. From an economic perspective, we haven't vetted these numbers with the town itself, but we're projecting in terms of annual real estate property taxes anywhere between 3.3 to 4.4 million a year in net property taxes to the town, compared to 694,000 that the town currently generates. So it's a 4 to 5-fold increase. And there are also, in addition to that, there are significant one-time building permit and other permit fees. Just for an example, a building permit fee for this project, as projected in terms of the square footage, would be about $5.4 million for just the building permit fee. So that also excludes the the fees and the increases in value of the properties along this corridor that'll occur as a result of this. If town meeting approves this project and the planning board approves this project and it gets through the approval process, it would, I think, result in a significant boost to the economic development along this corridor. One thing I will add, too, is that we've had discussions with the town and in terms of extension of the sewer. And so the intention is to extend the sewer from 1600 Osgood Street southerly all the way to Sutton Street for a distance of about 2 miles. And Hillwood has committed to contribute to that effort to the amount of $2.2 million. The town is being asked to provide a share as well as part of this process, and with the gap for the redevelopment of the sewer to be supplied by the state. And we understand the town may be applying for a MassWorks grant to fill that gap. And so, again, this is an opportunity where the town for many years has developed master plan after master plan for sewer. And in this area of town, it's always been kind of problematic to fit all the pieces in the puzzle together. There is some limited sewer by the Princeton Development Project and beyond on the easterly side of Osgood Street, but nothing that brings it all together. And so this is again an opportunity where we have an anchor at this part of North Andover that will result in bringing or installing sewer, we hope, to extend all the way to Sutton Street.
You talk, I know at our last meeting, you talked a little bit about some preliminary traffic information. I know that'll be a question that comes up. If you could just give us a minute or two on that.
Well, if I could turn to
anyone, yeah, that would be great.
Nate Kirshner from Langen.
Great.
Good evening. For the record, Nathan Kirshner of Langen Engineering. I guess to reiterate our previous discussions, and I can add a little more based on requests. Again, some of this is still preliminary. We looked at a couple different scenarios for comparison's sake. Obviously, the full existing building being built out in its entirety, and then obviously the recently eliminated master plan counts. The former Lucent building had about 20,000 average daily trips. The 2005 mixed-use master plan projected about 31,000 average daily trips. What we're currently proposing is about 8,700. I think it was yourself, Mr. Chairman, that requested us look at what's out there now. Unfortunately, the timing of us conducting the counts parlayed to the Columbia Gas incident. 1600 Osgood was gracious enough to let Columbia Gas utilize their parking lots, so the numbers are a little skewed because they were utilizing that parking lot. There were additional trips and stuff at the time, but the counts were about 6,400 average daily trips at the time. So based on those numbers and what we're projecting, it's about a 25% increase, albeit still about a third from what was the third. It's about a third compared to the master plan, and about a little less than half of Lucent in its heyday, if you will. And again, those are kind of broad numbers as we have to dial everything in a little bit.
In addition, we have also discussed the direction of where trucks would be directed, and so we would agree, and I would expect the planning board to impose a condition that any trailer trucks that would be exiting the site would take a left and head north on Osgood Street toward Havel to the Ward Hill connector to 495, which is the stretch of highway that was designed for the Western Electric site when it had 13,000 employees.
When truck traffic. It's my understanding that this is, it's probably not the right word for it, but it's a wholesale facility as opposed to a last mile retail facility. So what you're going to get is fewer loads of, I would suppose, larger trucks, but there's not going to be, like, is there any of the end user pickup where you would go and deliver to end customers right from that location, or is it?
The outbound from this facility is by and large full tractor trailer 53 footers that are heading for the parcel service hubs. So they are filled up, you know, and it's outbound is sorted by, say, like zip code. So they're filling up trucks by zip code,
Right.
and then those trucks go to FedEx, UPS, or the United States Parcel Service and dump that load into their delivery system.
Into their delivery system, and it's not 500 trucks lining up at the door every day and shipping to people in North Andover, Haverhill, and places like that.
It's not designed for
Yeah,
that.
okay. I think that's an important point because I've heard people sort of speculate about that, so, no.
This is tractor trailers in, tractor trailers out.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, that's all we had to present. If you have certain other questions, happy to answer them.
I don't have another, which is one statement, and I think we'll open up to see if any of them are public. You've given us your rough estimate of the potential tax revenue, and I know you had discussed trying to get some information independent from the town's auditors to corroborate or give some other additional information, so that would definitely be helpful. I haven't heard anything about any tax agreements or things like that. So I think, I'm sure that will be a question at some point. It's not really, I don't think it's really zoning related, but I'm sure it's going to come up. So just, I think that should be some information that's shared at some point. If there is anything, if there's not anything, great, then share that too. Just let people know what the situation is. Doesn't seem like it's a situation that calls for it or would involve, you know, tax into incremental financing or anything like that. But just that's a question that's going to come up from at a special town meeting, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, the only statement I will make is that the existing tax increment financing agreement that's in place, the selectmen are voting to terminate it by agreement with the current owner. What happens after that, nothing's coming up at this special town meeting related to anything new. And that's sort of a question for Amazon at a future date. That's all I can say at this point. That's all we know.
Great. Okay. So if there are,
You mentioned so we have a public forum tomorrow evening and then Sunday afternoon.
where are those?
VFW.
The VFW on Park Street.
Intent is to try to address concerns, increase the comfort level such that people can give us a green light on June 18th. So.
Okay. Great. Are there any members of the public that wish to ask a question, make a statement? Why don't you gentlemen cede the floor for a moment?
Terry Holland, 133 Green Street. I'm looking for you to vote in favor of something like this and work with them. And the reason why I'm here is I've been involved with the youth programs for over 20 years on most of the youth boards. And they've been a good neighbor to the town. And they've been a really good friend to the youth of North Andover. Every time we've needed fields and we've had shortages along the way, they've stepped up, given us their fields to use at no charge, and accommodated us in every way. Unfortunately, we will lose these fields, and we always knew we would. We knew the property was a great piece of property, and eventually it would go. But we had time to build a few fields in the meantime. We got Gallagher or Town Farm field up to date, and McAvoy's been updated, and we're working on the middle school, which if that was done would be in great shape. But so we're off by a year or two, but that's okay. They're, like I said, for a lot of years they've been a great friend. They've worked with us in every way with the carnivals, with everything we've asked for them. So I'm just asking the board to, treat them as they've been to us, a good neighbor. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Chris Allen, 3 Belmont Street. Hello. I just wanted to point out, as a former board member, I know what you went through getting the master plan done and all the work and energy that went into it. And I wanted to comment in support of the project, really precisely what comes right out of the master plan to support such a project. The Osgood Landing is mentioned several times under your economic development section in the master plan, and I'm going to read just specific language right out of it. To work cooperatively with the owners of large tract parcels to attract uses such as Osgood Landing serving as a primary example of one such opportunity. Focus business attention, which can be reasonably supported in appropriate locations within the town. Hard to imagine a more appropriate location within the town. Ensure existing commercial and industrial land uses promoting vibrant commercial centers and corridors. And using the town to increase flexibility to negotiate with potential new employers and to be more proactive in creating economic development opportunities for the community. So these are things right out of the master plan. I mean, it's hard to imagine that anything could be more suitable to what we request in the master plan. And as far as the facility itself, I mean, it really was built for such industry. I mean, the whole facility was built for a major shifting of cars and trucks going in and out of it. It was already planned for that. We'll have very little impact on our schools. What could be better? There's no manufacturing, and it's really very difficult to imagine a single use for this facility that would have any lower impact or any more of a negative impact than this facility would. So sounds like you all support the plan, and I'm all with you. And thanks for your work on this and all these extra meetings.
Anyone else? I just say I think I agree with Ms. Allen in that we cleared the zoning at the regular town meeting, and we did that before knowing about this with the idea that we would reset zoning to an industrial use, and if a good project came along, then we could zone appropriately. I don't think we realized it would happen so quickly, but to be able to accommodate a project such as this with such minimal zoning changes, I think is spectacular. So I think we have a great end user. I think we have a great possibility, and I agree that this is probably the best kind of use that we could hope for with the least amount of impacts. Until the robots take over, then after that we're in trouble. But until Skynet, we're all good. So no, I think to Peter, your point earlier, whenever we've asked a question, we've gotten an answer, which is nice. So I think everything is lining up really well. We really appreciate all the public outreach. Please continue to do that. Answer any questions. If they're hard questions, easy questions, just answer them all. If things come up where you don't know answers, tell people that you'll get them those answers and bring them to us, bring them to the Board of Selectmen, bring them to town meetings, so as much as can be discussed beforehand. The less that has to be said at town meeting, the better. This project should sell itself, and you guys are doing a good job so far. So that's at least my perspective. Anybody else has comments? Okay, so we will continue this public hearing for June 3rd. Is that the right date? June 4th. I'll be the only one here on June 3rd. Okay, June 4th at 7 o'clock. Planning board meeting at Town Hall in a normal location, normal time. I encourage anyone who's interested to come to ask questions and to go to these other informational meetings. So we will adjourn the public hearing continue until June 4th. Okay. Do you want to do minutes now or save those for do minutes? We got a motion to approve them.
Motion to approve minutes, May 7th and May 14th.
The second?
Sure, I'll do that.
All in favor? Aye. Can we get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Great. Thank you, everyone, for accommodating.